Well, Kelly, welcome and thank you for joining us on our Partners Perspectives call. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, CJ. It's great to be here.
Yep. Well, as we celebrate our 30th anniversary, we're taking a quick step back to take some time to celebrate and meet with the leaders around us that have inspired us and motivated us along the way. So we've had the chance to work with you, Kelly Fitzsimmons, the founder and executive director, chief executive officer, excuse me, of Project Evident for the past about 4 months. Kelly, our conversation originally began when you received a wonderful gift from Mackenzie Scott and along with many other foundations, and have really just grown this organization over the past 5 years. So first off, congratulations on your success. It's been a tremendous partnership working with you and being able to partner with you on the next few years. So thank you.
Thanks, CJ. And I'd say congratulations back to you on 30 years of success. That's an entire generation, a tremendous body of work, and we've absolutely benefited from it. So congratulations to you all. Thank you for what you're doing.
Really appreciate that. Thanks, Kelly. Okay, so Kelly, you've had an amazing career, particularly in philanthropy. You served as the CEO of the Critton Hastings House. You co-founded New Profit. You're Chief Strategy and Program Officer at the Edna McConnell Clark Foundation, and now serving as the CEO of Project Evident. Project Evident is a nonprofit through technology, tools, and training that makes evidence more accessible and meaningful. And honestly, you've been a great partner to Orr Group. I mention all that because it shows you've had a great career in philanthropy. You started a wonderful organization. What inspired you to get into philanthropy? What's your why?
Thanks, CJ. I think if I can share sort of two answers, two reflections on that, and I think first and foremost, my interest in the social innovation sector, the social sector, is deeply personal. And my sticking in this work is deeply professional. On the personal side, I was born in Northern Ireland. I am an immigrant to this country. My parents were Protestant and Catholic, so this was during the height of the Troubles in Northern Ireland, and I'm a product of what you would call a mixed marriage. And we confronted, as a family, a lot of physical unsafety and economic unsafety, and the opportunity to immigrate to this country where more possibility was afforded is something that shaped me deeply. We moved around a lot when I was young, so I was exposed to a number of different communities in the United States and South Africa, across Europe, and saw consistent themes around justice, equity, economic fairness that I think are just in my DNA. It's how I was brought up, and despite spending time in other sectors, my heart and my mind just came back to the social sector. Getting involved in philanthropy grew right out of constructive dissatisfaction with the way philanthropy was working at the time. And so being able to be part of more innovative approaches, certainly at New Profit, at Edna McConnell Clark, which is now Blue Meridian, was an expression of that constructive dissatisfaction, which I think, my team and myself, we're now bringing that to reimagining what evidence building, what data use, what technology can really be in the social sector today.
Thank you, Kelly. So the second question, I might pull on a little bit of your past. You said you've been confronted with physical and economic and safety challenges. In the past 2 years, there's been economic challenges, social challenges, health challenges, crises left and right. There's also just been general changes in the way people are giving. How's the social sector changed? I would ask maybe in the course of your career, but particularly in these past 2 to 3 years.
Yeah. So there's been so much change, and it's exciting, as well as challenging. But as I reflect back on my career, many years ago, that was a time when business plans were a novel idea. Having a COO was an innovation. There was a mentality around the nonprofit sector that there was something, it was charity, which meant it was unprofessional. They were diametrically opposed ideas, that it was somehow second class, that it needed to be professionalized. So that was a lot of the groundswell, the mindset around the work then, despite the fact that there were increasingly progressive and helpful policies that we were passing at the federal level that just weren't connecting well with how the social sector, how philanthropy, how nonprofits were operating. So tailwinds were created, but the capacities and the mindsets didn't really exist in the social sector there in many ways to rise up and meet that context. Today, and particularly in the last couple of years, I think what's really exciting is the rise of data analytics, the rise of data science, new technologies that democratize decision-making, I think really strengthen the role, the purpose, the capabilities of the social sector and allow for a marriage of that professionalism, if you will, combined with activism. So it's really powerful when we're able to see data, knowledge, these other assets lifted up in order to make change, bring attention to change faster, and support leaders and communities in those endeavors. So the rate of understanding and addressing a problem, the rate of that change, the pace of that change has certainly been heightened with the pandemic, with the racial reckoning, with economic recovery that we're all focused in. But I'm really excited about the future of our sector, even though there are brutally difficult challenges to address because of the tools and because of the leadership that are coming to the fore. And we need to support them so that they too don't burn out, so that decision-making supports, leadership supports are really truly in place for this next generation of leaders.
I really like that, the rate of understanding and addressing problems is moving quicker in the social sector because of the tools and leadership. And I know that you guys have been, you and your organization have been front and center with that. And so that's great to hear. And I agree completely. It's exciting. So we discussed a little bit about the past. Like to look forward a bit. I mean, Project Evidence been on a wild but really successful ride, right? You started off with just a gift from Edna McConnell Clark, to now you're receiving gifts from variety foundations, individuals, et cetera. What's the future look like? What are the plans for the next 5 years?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that our plans, our hopes, when we reflect back on the last 5 years, and we have been very, very fortunate and privileged to receive the startup funding, to be able to build the team with the incredibly talented folks that we've had, to pilot and test. We've gotten a number of things wrong, but we've gotten, fortunately, a few more things right than wrong. So, but really leaning into that learning. We've had the opportunity, I think, to focus on making the case for the work. There were mindsets that needed to be shifted. There were a set of biases around centering on practitioners, on nonprofits' appetite for even doing a lot of this work in the first place. And that thankfully has shifted over the last 5 years. And I think that with, the body of work that we now have, the partners in the field that we now have that are showing what's possible when we take a different approach, we take a next generation approach to evidence building and use that centers practitioners, that treats this work as more continuous process, not a thumbs up, thumbs down thing on the side. That broadens the definition of evidence and is more inclusive of participant and community voice. I think when we embrace those things, we're ushering in a next generation of evidence. And our hope over the next 5 years is that we expand our focus on that direct services side, that we're strengthening and lifting up our field building efforts so that ultimately we and our partners are able to enjoy a stronger ecosystem for this work. And this is more of the norm than the exception. And our hope is in the next 5 years, we rise to meet that challenge and can contribute on behalf of the field.
great. The next question, I'm going to talk exactly about that, the ecosystem in the field. So we talk a lot about collaboration in terms of, our teams working together. But I know that collaboration in the nonprofit sector is very important to you and to Project Evident. Not only do you serve many nonprofits, but you also focus a lot on field building and just generally advancing the sector. So I'd be curious, maybe it's a two-part question. How has collaboration impacted the way you approach the sector? And then also, how have we been helpful in collaboration with our teams working together?
Absolutely. So, I think collaboration is the strategy. It's infused in the way that we do our work, the data and evidence work. So we seek to move from a top-down to a collaborative model in the practice of evidence building and use. Our strategic evidence planning approach is all about that. That is our tradecraft, if you will. We're looking to shift that relationship from the practitioners, being the caboose and the engine, if you will, to partnering alongside them so that they're really empowered to do the work. And likewise, that's how we've experienced you and your team at Orr Group. You guys have given us tremendous strategic guidance. You've helped us build capacity, and I think you've given us the courage to try to bring our work to new audiences. The advent of the gift from Mackenzie Scott was absolutely catalytic for us, but you helped us channel that catalytic energy, and I think see possibilities and who we could connect to that we didn't see, for ourselves. We work in a corner of the industry that's not super well understood, and you helped us lift that out, translate what we're doing, and reach other audiences. And we're right alongside with us as we did that. So there's zero way that we could, when I look back at sort of what we have now versus where we started with you, there's zero way we could do this with you unless you weren't fully committed to that collaboration. And we could, place our trust in you to help us really build this muscle, which you've done.
Really appreciate that, Kelly. And I'll tell you, we work, one of the pleasures of this role, this job, is to work with some of the most interesting missions and cutting edge stuff. And I know you guys are right there. And it's been an absolute pleasure to learn about what you all do and your processes. And it's really great to learn what you do. And so thank you for partnering with us. And I appreciate the comments. Kelly, the last thing I'll ask, open mic. Anything else you think our listeners should know? Anything else you want to talk about while we're here?
I think the last thing that I would share, just in addition to reiterating a huge note of gratitude to the team that you've built and the way that you all approach the work, is that this isn't just fundraising. This is coalition building for change. And I think you all helping us and others think strategically about what that coalition needs to include so that funders whose jobs are to fund actually have significant roles in these coalition, in the coalition for change. And given the space, the decision making, the learning that's incumbent upon us all, bringing that into the mix is a very, very different perspective and way of approaching the work, and just one that resonates with us and is deeply appreciated. We're all change makers.
Thank you. Really appreciate your comments. Thanks.